All right, with BJ Rain's Bronco Nation news, huge Mountain West title game coming up, obviously, tomorrow night on the Blue between Boise State and UNLV, with so much on the line, which sometimes is cliche, but it's just flat out true in this instance. It feels like with everything that Boise has done, if they don't win this game, well, they're likely not in the college football playoff. So there's never been a bigger disparity in the history of a Boise State football game, right? From winning and potentially a bye in a college football playoff to maybe playing in, I don't even know, in LA Bowl for Boise State.
Yeah, partying with Gronk in the LA Bowl is the loser in this one. Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on, John. And it is crazy. And you think about all the years, all the history of Boise State and the Fiesta Bowls and the 1AA national championship they won back in 1980 and kind of the rise of Boise State the last couple of decades. Some folks would fight me on it in terms of biggest game ever. It's certainly the biggest home game on the Blue in the history, just with what's at stake here. I mean, you're not talking just about Boise State trying to potentially get to the college football playoff. You're mentioning the bye, and that is just a massive deal when you play into all this stuff. So, it's a massive deal for Boise State, massive opportunity. You're talking $7-8 million for the conference for Boise State because you get the $4 million for the first round. But if you get the bye, you still get that money, and then you get the money for the second round too. So the conference, the money that's at stake, the college football playoff, if it's not the biggest game in the history of Boise State football, I'll maybe say it's second behind the first Fiesta Bowl in 2006, but it's right up there. And UNLV is saying the same thing, biggest game in their history too. So all on the line, 6 o'clock, national TV. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Is there any argument? So I look at the college football playoff rankings and I hear what the commissioners are saying. And, if SMU loses, they should still be in the field. If you make that case for SMU, could you make that same case for Boise State? Because they're not the last team in the field right now. Like, should Boise State or could Boise State be in this field if they don't win on Friday night?
They won't be, but you could certainly make the case. And I know like Dan Wetzel does a great job with Yahoo on his podcast was talking about this too. Like, you're saying right now that Boise State is better than Alabama. Like right now, the way that you have your rankings, you're saying Boise State is better and more deserving of being in than Alabama. Why should a loss in the conference championship game when Alabama doesn't even have to play change that? So is it going to happen? No, there's no chance. We know how this works. They're not putting two Mountain West teams out of 12 in the college football playoff, and they're not bumping Alabama for a Mountain West team. It's just not happening. But maybe you say SMU gets in because they're higher up. They're number 8, so you can still drop them a few spots for losing, but keep them in. Boise State's resume, 1 loss by 3 points to the number 1 team in the country, Oregon, when if you look at the game, they outgained Oregon in that game. They gave up a kick return and a punt return touchdown. I mean, they should have beaten Oregon in that game. And so they didn't, though. And here they are, and now they're at home. And you could say, hey, you get a chance. You lose at home in the championship game. You don't deserve to be in. I understand that. I get it. And that will be what happens. Mountain West will get 1 team in. But it is an interesting argument in terms of these championship games and why even play this championship game. Boise State's in and would get the bye if they don't play this game. And so it's like, what's the point? If I know there's a lot of money on the line, a lot of exposure, obviously, with Fox and everybody being here in town, and it's going to be great. But Alabama gets to sit there and not play and then potentially jump Boise State if they lose. You got Boise State at 10. You don't have Boise State at 12 right now. You have them in as a quote-unquote at-large team based on the way it's set up. And so, yeah, never will happen, but certainly you can make an argument. And obviously a power team like SMU, they're probably going to get the benefit of the doubt. Why wouldn't a Boise State either? But we know the answer to that.
PJ Rain's Bronco Nation News with us right now, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. What's been most challenging for the Broncos over the last month? You look at some of these scores. I've watched some of these games. They struggled early against San Jose State. I was impressed by the way they bounced back. The Wyoming game, I mean, it felt as if maybe they were a drive away from losing that game. What's changed potentially over the last month for the Broncos?
I would almost say they've just kind of been bored. Like they this is the game they've been looking for. This is what they've been in position for a month. That if they just won out, they knew they were going to be in the playoff and be in this situation. And so I just feel like they, not to say they weren't focused or didn't care or weren't motivated or whatever, that's not the case, but these are college kids and they were big favorites in these games. And I think they were just kind of like in baseball, the dog days of August or whatever. They were just kind of ready to get to this point. They were ready to get, that's why I think the Oregon State game, they actually played better. I know the final score was only 16 in that game, but they were, at the 10-yard line about to go up 21-0 and Ashton Jeanty fumbled. I mean, just stuff that just doesn't happen. And I thought they looked much better and really were in control of the Oregon State game last week. And I thought that looked more like, Boise State football, aside from what the final score indicated. But I think they were just waiting for this week. The last 3-4 games, they knew what they just needed to win. They were big favorites. Didn't play great. They've had some guys banged up. The offensive line has been banged up. The starting safety's been out. Jeanty's been banged up. I mean, they've had some injuries and things, but I think they were just kind of all along looking for this week right here and for Friday night's game. And now a lot of the guys are back healthy and they're ready to roll.
The best season I saw before Jeanty from a Mountain West tailback was Rashad Penny in 2017. He finished 5th in Heisman voting. A lot of people thought he should have ended up in New York. He sat in second halves a little bit that year. I remember a game against San Jose State where he had like 200 yards on 10 carries, maybe in a first half on the road. But what Jeanty has done is truly remarkable. It's one of the great seasons by a tailback in FBS football history. Does he have a realistic shot in your mind, or is this already determined when it comes to the Heisman Trophy?
Well, you look at all the gambling and odds and all that, and you'd say no chance. But from talking to folks at Circa and places down in Las Vegas, I think they just had so much they're in trouble with some of the Travis Hunter bets because they took some pretty good sized bets on Travis Hunter when he was still outside, the 20-1, 30-1 range. So I think some of that is them just moving the line so much because they don't want any more Travis Hunter bets, and they'd be so happy to take money on anybody else. Like, do I think Travis Hunter is a minus 10,000 favorite in terms of gap in realistic odds to Ashton Jeanty to win the Heisman? No chance. I mean, is Travis Hunter probably going to win? Yes. He's had the prime effect, the national social media effect, the hype train has certainly been super high on him just because of everything that Colorado and Coach Prime and all the times they've been on Fox and Big Noon Kickoff this year. He's certainly got that, perspective, but you know what? He's sitting at home this weekend. He's not playing a game, and Ashton Jeanty is, and Ashton Jeanty has a chance on national TV to make kind of a final statement here. I would suspect Hunter wins and Jeanty probably finishes second, but Jeanty's certainly going to win the Doak Walker Award for top running back, certainly get to go to New York. And I don't think for a group of 5 running back going to New York and finishing second is, anything to cry about. It's been a heck of a season, a historic season, only 341 yards away from passing Barry Sanders' record. I mean, don't get me started on that. They don't include Barry Sanders' bowl game, which they should. I think that should be way too easy just to add that back in. But the quote-unquote record is 341 yards away. Maybe if he runs for that and scores 5 touchdowns on Friday night and they beat UNLV handily, maybe that changes the scale. But I think you're probably looking at a college football playoff game to maybe break that, or a bowl game. But he's had a heck of a year, man. And it's I mean, you literally can't go to the bathroom like when Boise State's about to get the ball. Like, you literally can't get up and go get popcorn in the concession stand. Like, anytime Ashton Jeanty touches the ball or Boise State has the ball, there's a chance he could score a touchdown. And it's been pretty incredible. And like I said, he's been banged up the last few weeks. They've had 2 starting offensive linemen out, but they're both back for this game, and he's as healthy as he's been in a while. So I really do think that he's got a chance for a big game on Friday night.
It's funny because Marshall Faulk at San Diego State finished second in Heisman voting. I think he did it with a team that was either 500 or under 500. And obviously Ashton Jeanty, with the team success and the year he's put together, you could easily make the argument.
You could go down the line with all these great running backs at San Diego State.
Yeah. Yeah, and Boise State too, obviously. Some of the best tailbacks, not just in Group of 5, but Power 5 football have been at Boise State or San Diego State over the last 20 or 30 years. Where do you think the Pac-12 turns? I know that's not necessarily the focus this weekend, but they still need at least an 8th football playing member. Any thoughts on where the Pac-12 turns for an 8th and or 9th member?
Well, I mean, it's kind of timely because they're playing UNLV, but I still wish there was some way they could get UNLV back. And I think that just UNLV took the short-term cash grab from the Mountain West, but I think long-term they're looking around. Like, I remember going to San Jose earlier this year, and it's nothing against San Jose State, but you get out your Uber and you look at the outside of the stadium, and then you walk inside and you're just like, this is why Boise State left. Like, nothing. I mean, the facilities at some of these schools, you look at Hawaii and their situation, you look at, I mean, it's just like, what are we doing here? And so you wonder why UNLV, like, long-term would really want to be, grouped with this group of schools instead of the group of schools that are going to the Pac-12. And so I know there's a lot of language in their contract. They're getting a lot of money, at least in the next, 3, 4, 5 years, probably can't happen. But I would love to see, as someone that loves going to Las Vegas too, UNLV be in this mix. But if you're looking like short-term, I mean, I still think Memphis makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't mind seeing Memphis if that means you got to take a Tulane or a South Florida or somebody else with them. I'm not real high on UTSA. But I still think Memphis, from a basketball football combo perspective, brings a national name, brings a brand, has had success, in both those programs in the last several years. If you can add a Memphis and a Penny Hardaway basketball program to Gonzaga and San Diego State in this basketball league, like that'd be incredible. And so I'm not super high on Tulane. Like I said, if you have to take Tulane to get Memphis, that's fine. But I Memphis is the one school that I think would instantly just make this league go, yeah, that's a pretty dang good league. But if you have to take a South Florida, Tulane, UTSA to get Memphis, I guess you do if you need a partner for them. But I would say, contracts, whatever's out the window. If you're just giving me a couple teams, give me UNLV and Memphis. And I think this conference looks pretty good. And I guess you can always throw in the years from now, do Cal and Stanford want to come back at some point? Like there's a lot of other teams in play, but give me Memphis to start with. And then if you can find a way to get UNLV after that, I think that's a pretty darn good league.
I agree with you. Final one. I mean, Mountain West basketball coming off a banner year. It just was 6 teams in the tournament, and that was probably never going to be realistic to do back-to-back years. But there are 4 or 5 teams that are in that top 50-ish range in the metrics. What do you make of the start of the year? How do you think it maybe shakes out for the league in 2025?
Well, my first reaction is I think a lot of I watched all 3 of those games last night, and the bottom teams, it looked like got a lot better. There's not going to be a lot of easy nights going to San Jose, going to Fresno. I know San Diego State ended up winning that game pretty handily, but they look like a much improved, more exciting team worth watching, with Vance Wahlberg at Fresno State. And I think San Jose State, going down and giving New Mexico everything they wanted at the pit. Wyoming with Sundance Wicks almost went to Utah State and got a win. They look massively improved. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of off nights at the bottom. Whether or not the metrics show that or you end up getting, rewarded for those wins, I don't know. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams in the league happy, excited to go play at most of these road venues in the league this year. And so I think the league's going to be strong at the top. I still think Nevada's good. I still think New Mexico's good. San Diego State, I know a lot of people were down on them, but I think they've proven that obviously Brian Dutcher knows what he's doing. And I did the Lindy's Magazine Mountain West Stories this year. So I talked to every Mountain West coach over the summer. And I remember going in thinking not very highly of San Diego State, just with what they had on paper. And I didn't think they equaled in the transfer portal what they had lost. And Brian Dutcher, I talked to him for 10 minutes and he had me thinking they were going back to the Final Four. Like he was just super high on his team. And it was for guys like Magoon Guath and a lot of these guys that nobody had seen. Well, now you're seeing them, and San Diego State looks every bit as good as a team that could win the league again this year. And so I think that the 4 there, and I know Boise State lost on a buzzer beater to Boston College, and a lot of people are kind of writing them off already. But I think when it's all said and done, they've proven over time that the last 3 years they've taken an early loss or two and bounced back and been a quality team. So are they getting in 6? No. But can they still get 3 or 4? I don't think that's out of the question. I still think the league is very strong at the top. Like I said, we're not even mentioning a Colorado State, who some of the metrics and stuff don't like, and they're a little further down, a UNLV. I think that from top to bottom, I think there's going to be parity. I think there's going to be some weird scores like we saw last night. We'll see what that does to all the metrics. But I think it's going to be another fun year, another quality year. And you're going to see 3-4 teams right there, in the mix come March for the tournament for sure.
I said final question, but you think Barry Odom stays or goes UNLV?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, it's funny because Brian Harsin, the old Boise State coach, I saw was rumored for the Utah State job or in the mix there, which is very odd for me. I think Brian Harsin would kill it at UNLV. So, West Virginia, Purdue, I know there's some openings out there. I would say, that's a good one, man. I would say I don't know. I would say that he thinks he can get it going there. He's a great coach, but at some point you got to capitalize. This might be the time for him to take a jump, but it's just crazy for Boise State fans because usually their coach is the one that everyone's worried about leaving.
Sure.
But I think Spencer Danielson really does seem like a guy who's been here 8 years and wants to stay for a while. And I think it's kind of nice for Boise State fans to sit with their feet propped up on this one and not be too worried about losing their coach, at least for another year or two.
BJ, appreciate it. I know it's busy. Enjoy tomorrow night. Should be an incredible atmosphere on the blue for Boise State and UNLV. BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News. Thank you, BJ.
No problem, man. Looking forward to it. It should be fun. And January 4th, I think, CBS game in Boise for basketball. And then February, back to San Diego. Those are 2 games I always have circled on the calendar. When's the UNLV trip? When's the San Diego State trip? But excited for basketball, excited for football. And I think the Mountain West is, at least for the next, couple of months, in a good spot here and should be fun.
No doubt about it. And some of those San Diego State, Boise State basketball games have been incredible with the Broncos on the right side of a lot of them here recently.
6-7 or something crazy. It's,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
unbelievable.
make any sense.
Is Max Rice still hitting threes in overtime off the window?
somewhere in the part. Yeah, somewhere he's in the parking lot, I guess. Right? Yeah, he has no eligibility left. For New Mexico fans can probably rejoice more than San Diego.
That's
State
right.
fans.
I remember it.
Yeah, well, love Mountain West basketball and love San Diego State matches. Brian Dutcher is one of my favorite coaches in the league, and can't wait to get into real conference play here after the holidays and ramp this thing up.
No doubt. BJ, appreciate you.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me, John.